Frankly speaking, you got a little bit of the best of from last week. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We're going to be talking with our guest in just a moment. You saw him there in the chair, but before that, I've got a quick announcement that was sent to me late Friday that I want to make sure that you are made aware of. It's a road closure. Grand Central Ave will be closed today starting at 8:30 a.m. from West Franklin Street to West Broad Street within the village of Horsehead. So keep that in mind on your way into school or your way into work. So we're going to take a short break this morning, but before that, I'm going to give you a little highlight of what to expect on the program. Michael Vellino, did I say that right? Is my guest. He is the Thurston Town Supervisor. So if you have any questions for him, there is our contact information. You can email me or text me, and I will check right before we go on the air. And it doesn't just have to be for our guests. Just in general, I did want to highlight one thing that happened over the weekend before we go to break and just say hi to a few people. It was the Duane Eddy Circle Convention online. As you know, I've been a big champion of Duane Eddy here in Corning, being recognized for his amazing career, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer. Well, his fan club, they don't call it a fan club, they call it Duane Eddy Circle, but they met yesterday online over Zoom, so I had to give a little bit of a speech about all of our efforts here in Steuben County to recognize Duane, and it was kind of nice. It was all people from the United Kingdom. I think I saw a few local people as well, so I want to say hi to everybody who's tuning in now that are a fan watching from the UK, if they're watching this a week later on YouTube. So let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll be joined by our guest, Michael Vellino. Stay with us. We'll be right back on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. This is the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program, and we are being joined by Michael Vellino. Thanks so much for being on the program.
Thanks for having me, Frank.
Of course. Now, I have a couple questions for you because I was admitting off the air I'm a little ignorant on the topic. So I want to first start just about you. Tell me about yourself and how you became Thurston Town Supervisor.
Right. So I was, born and raised in Thurston. I graduated from Campbell Savona. I then went on to Geneseo. Graduated from Geneseo. After that, I spent a couple years in Italy working on various farms, and then came back to the area to Steuben County, and I ran a bakery in Canisteo up until about 2018, and then 2018 came back to Thurston. Been working at a farm in Savona, Donderwitz and Daughters since then, and then started getting involved in the local politics in Thurston. First as town historian, where helped to improve the town cemeteries, did repaired headstones, got grants for Civil War veterans headstones, and then I was elected to the Thurston Town Board in 2020. And this year I was appointed interim town supervisor in March till the end of this year. So that's kind of how I got to where I am now.
And I know there's some major issues going on in Thurston. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But you said you have to run at the end of the year. You're going to run again for town supervisor?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to file my paperwork tomorrow with the Steuben County Board of Elections.
Sure.
I'll be running as independent for a full 2-year term as a Thurston Town Supervisor.
Now, how long have you been supervisor?
Since March 1st.
Since March. How's it been going so far?
I'm starting to get a handle on it. It's been one of the most challenging things I've ever undertaken, but it's everyone has been very helpful. I have to say, everyone.
Well, good for you for running in the first place, being on the board, because it is challenging. People don't realize, and I bring it up on the program a lot, but the petition process is not an easy process, but it's an educational process.
It is a very educational process, and I was petitioning yesterday as well, and just talking to residents and hearing their concerns. It's important, and even I want to hear everyone's concerns, even if they don't agree with me.
Sure.
Well,
you get the nice weather. I had to go out in February. Good for you. So let's talk a little bit about the issues facing the town of Thurston. Do you want to dive into this again? I'm going to show my ignorance a little bit because I'm not overly familiar. I'm not from Thurston, but I know there's many people that watch that are from Thurston. Could you tell us about the Casella issue?
So this is, we were informed, kind of just heard it through the grapevine back in August late August, early September last year that Casella, this is Casella Organics. They're headquartered in Maine. There's also Casella Waste Management Services based in Vermont, but this is the main group. They purchased and leased land in Thurston, Cameron, as well as Bath, totaling a total of 2,800 acres.
Wow.
And they took over the property they acquired is a long-time farm in Thurston.
Okay.
That in recent years had expanded into Cameron. Cameron is to the west of Thurston and Bath to the north. So that's originally we had thought as a town board that maybe Casella, they wanted to build a landfill in Thurston because it's very easy access to the county landfill.
Sure.
And just we started researching throughout the fall. We kind of started to understand that they wanted to just kind of increase the size of the land spreading operation. The previous farm owners, they land spread sewer sludge from 28 municipal water supplies in the southern tier and in the northern tier of Pennsylvania. They also spread food waste and had a couple CAFOs, concentrated animal feedlots. Our concern as a board is it became clear that Casella, through documents through DEC, because this operation is permitted through DEC, land spreading permit through DEC, that they want to start accepting sewer sludge from Nassau County, which is just to the right next to JFK Airport, and this sewer sludge from Nassau County is being shown. I mean, it's in an area that Nassau County is heavily contaminated. Their water supply is heavily contaminated with PFAS chemicals.
Okay.
And these is kind of an emerging problem. These are man-made compounds. There's about 5,000 different ones. And they originated from DuPont and 3M, but they're found in many household products. I mean, a lot of stuff that ends up in the sewer, like shampoos, dental floss, cleaning supplies, nail polish, lipstick.
Okay.
So this is a problem because this is coming into the into these wastewater treatment facilities, and currently they don't have, a lot of these wastewater treatment facilities don't have the means to filter out these PFAS
I remember
compounds.
this being a major issue. I want to say Chuck Schumer released a press statement on this not that long ago, and they're putting grant money in, if I'm not mistaken, in various areas to clean this up.
Right, they are, and even the Biden administration is looking at this. So this particular area, Nassau County, is heavily contaminated. So we as a board are concerned about this sludge,
Of course.
the sewer sludge coming to Thurston and then being spread on the fields. And it's important to know that states are taking action. Other states, for instance, the state of Maine, actually, the practice of spreading sewer sludge, what Casella plans to do in Thurston, is actually banned in their home state of Maine.
That's interesting.
The state of Maine banned this practice in April of last year, and then they acquired this land in Thurston in July of last year. So,
yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so
were you given any notice as a town board?
We were not, and on February 15th of this year, we passed a one-year moratorium that just puts a pause on new permits or on expansions of any land spreading operation within the town. And that evening, Casella officials from Maine did give a presentation to the board, and they started out the presentation by apologizing about not being more forthcoming with the board. So be more transparent.
Yeah.
So.
I want to find out a little bit more about the land spreading for those that don't know, but can you stay with us through a short break?
Sure.
Okay,
sure.
We'll be right
Thanks.
back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on beautiful Market Street in Corning. Stay with us. Welcome back back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program where we have an interview. I want to thank Michael Valino for being our guest. He is the Thurston Town Supervisor. So I still have a lot of questions for you because I'm not overly familiar with this land spreading practice. What are your concerns, and are you hearing from residents about concerns as well?
Residents are extremely concerned.
Okay.
I have a lot of concerns. The first is that, it's been stated to me by DEC, by Casella, that, the spreading of sewer sludge on agricultural land is good. It's actually good practice.
Okay.
So I would say, why don't we just spread it on Long Island as opposed to transporting them? It's a 6-hour round trip to get to Thurston from Nassau County.
That's what's confusing.
It seems to run counter to, I know New York has this green energy push.
Yeah.
That seems extremely
on two different
counterproductive.
levels, not just spreading the waste, but also, like you said, the travel time.
Right, the travel time. Right, driving these trucks. So yeah, that's a problem. In March of this year, the local chapter of the Sierra Club, they came in and they had tested 35 water sources of homeowners' wells that live adjacent to the we'll say the Heritage land spreading operation, which is located on in a hamlet of Thurston, Bonnie Hill, border with Bath, and they found contamination, and several had contamination above EPA, the new EPA levels of 4 parts per trillion. Which, think about that. I mean, that's how potent these compounds are. We're also concerned about the destruction of our town roads.
That's a good point.
The headquarters of this operation will be, it's in Thurston, and it's located on Bonnie Hill Road, a dirt road. So they're not meant for all this truck traffic.
Sure.
Several trucks a day. And then, of course, the depreciation of land values. People aren't, if you have homeowners have contaminated water, it's going to be hard to sell their property. And then, of course, who wants to live next to a land spreading operation? And then I also am concerned that it creates a permanent transformation of the land. Land can never be registered, for organic crops again after this sewer sludge has been spread on it. So, those are. But residents, of course, are concerned because the smell too. The smell been a big thing.
I was wondering if you're going to get to that point. I'm guessing, and it hasn't even been that warm yet.
Right, right, exactly. So
does it really, that land, can it be used for farming still? Or is it not being used as a farm?
Right now, crops are being grown on it. And see, this is the concern, and this is why Maine banned it, because one way to get these compounds out of the soil is to grow crops on them, and the plants take up those chemicals, and then anything that eats it, the wildlife, the agriculture, the livestock, then it goes into the milk. In Maine, they had a huge problem that the milk was contaminated with PFAS, couldn't sell it.
I find it really interesting because it does seem to run counter with all the green plans that we've heard so much about.
It does, and it's several states are starting to take action. Michigan, New Hampshire, recently West Virginia. However, New York, the Hochul administration has vowed actually to increase by 35% the spreading of sewer sludge on agricultural land in the coming years. And my feel is this stuff should just be put into a landfill, not spread over the land.
That is interesting. It's for me, I find it a weird stance for Governor Hochul to take. Really,
I do too, considering the
push. Yeah. Let's face it, the Green Deals.
And then we have the New York Green Amendment of 2021 that guarantees every New Yorker the right to clean water, soil, and air. So
that's very interesting. So what are the next steps? What can residents do? People that are concerned, what would you recommend?
The first thing residents do is they can write DEC Commissioner Bezos Sagos in Albany about to not we want I've been asking since I've been town supervisor for a public hearing in Thurston with DEC to address the concerns. I spoke with the permit administrator for Region 8, Kim Merchant, last month, and she they are not going to have a meeting in Thurston because they consider this a minor modification to an existing permit. Minor modifications don't trigger SECRA, therefore don't trigger an environmental review.
Okay, all right. That's
So
convenient.
that's meeting with DC. We are, we have our town attorney who has a background in environmental issues. We have another attorney from Olean, environmental attorney, helping us out with both pro bono. We're looking at the possibility of maybe a permanent ban on contaminated sewer sludge coming into the town. And then also the Sierra Club, they have approved funding for certified tests. The 35 that they did earlier were not certified tests. They just kind of gave us a baseline. But now with these certified tests, they could come in and test it through a certified lab and figure out really where the contamination is coming from. And then another thing is I want to let everyone know that Monday, June 12th at 7 o'clock at Haverling High School, the town of Bath, is as well. They're going to be taking this issue up and deciding how to move forward. The town of Cameron on April 12th passed a moratorium as well, just like equivalent to Thurston's. So now hopefully, Bath, I urge everyone, come out to the town of Bath, Haverling High School, June 12th at 7 o'clock. And for more information about this, I would consider you could read Peter Mantius. That's Mantius. He writes for the Waterfront.
Okay,
He's from Watkins Glen. He's wrote on Thurston as well as Cameron. There's also our town attorney has a website where she has a link to all this information. Treichler Law Office, TREICHLER, TreichlerLawOffice.com. And then also on the Town of Thurston website, our deputy town supervisor, she's been posting all the communications we've received.
Okay.
And, you can even view the presentation that the Sierra Club gave to the Thurston Town Board in April.
It seems like everybody was caught off guard by this a little bit.
We were. It was, yeah.
And that's unfortunate.
Yeah,
I'm surprised that even though the DEC's involved, that you didn't have more of a say in it as a board.
And I brought that up with Kim Merchant because she stated that, Casella views this as a minor modification because they're removing food waste in the CAFOs.
Yeah.
And then they add the soup, so they think it balances out. and I told Kim, I said, I'm the first person from Thurston you've talked to, and I think these people, everyone has huge concerns, and we are, our meetings have been.
Well, it'd be nice if the DEC could hold one public hearing for all the towns. I mean, you've got 3 towns involved. It doesn't have to be just Thurston.
Even if we got a bigger venue in Bath,
right.
and let because in Cameron, great concern in Cameron as well. I mean, I've been some Cameron meetings, and people are concerned.
And I wonder, and I'm glad that's one of the reasons why I'm glad you're on this morning, because maybe the people of Bath didn't realize that this was coming either. And if you said that there's a meeting coming up on June 12th, it's tough to be proactive after the fact, but it sounds like everybody is now being
right. People, you're right. I'm trying to really get the message out. June 12th, they have a bigger venue for the meeting, so we're going to have Haverling High School auditorium.
Well, just before we go, you said you're running for re-election. Anything you want to say to the voters? Or is it too early? You're not campaigning yet.
It might be a little too early, but yeah, we do. No, I just we have a lot of projects in the works, and I just I want to continue on with this, and it's going to take more than a year, and
sure.
I want to be in this for the long haul here.
Well, how about near election time? We'll have you back on. How's that?
That I would appreciate it.
All right. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks a lot.
All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I want to thank our guest this morning, Michael Vellino, for being on the program. Interesting, not a topic that I was familiar with, and it sounds like some people caught off guard, so I hope that you enjoyed that interview as much as I did. And that's the kind of program we have. If you have issues with your town, I mentioned this on the very first show, that, we are going to do our best to reach out to the people, quote unquote, in charge. And try to get the answers for you. So if you have questions or you want someone on the program specifically, contact me. Say, hey, my town supervisor, my city council member, could you have them on to address this issue? I'd love to do it. Just reach out and let me know, and I'll try my hardest to get those people on the program, and you can reach out to me there for any issues, any questions, comments, concerns, criticisms. So there you go. We have a lot to talk about. First of all, I saw this in my paperwork this morning, and I don't want to go over it too much, but do you remember the Buffalo Billion? It was going to be Governor Cuomo's then Governor Cuomo, now disgraced former Governor Cuomo. It was going to be his crowning achievement. It was a game changer for Western New York. The group was called Athnex, I believe. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I think so, Athnex. It has now filed for bankruptcy and signaled state labor authorities that 123 employees will be laid off in phases by the end of August. The Global is a biopharmaceutical company. It had offices on Main Street in Buffalo and in Clarence. Well, the doors are going to close on August 10th, ending a 20-year run that began in a University of Buffalo chemistry laboratory. Now, this is interesting. Cuomo thought his Buffalo Billion Economic Development Initiative, infused $200 million in subsidies to build Athnex, a new manufacturing facility in Dunkirk. $200 million of your money and my money. Another $25 million went to design space in the building's headquarters. And they were predicting, this was Governor Cuomo at the time, predicting it would create 1,400 jobs in Western New York. Now going bankrupt and letting off their 123 employees. It's a lot different, by the way, 123 from 1,400. And they will close their doors on August 10th. So that was a quick New York issue I wanted to mention because everybody's talking about the debt ceiling. Well, I don't know if everybody is, but some in the media are talking about the debt default. A lot of back and forth, who's to blame. I do find it interesting when a group, this group being the Republicans, comes up with a plan, says, here's our ideas, let's start the conversation. Nope, we're not negotiating, and then they blame the Republicans. When it has been President Biden who has dragged his feet and not open to any actual conversation or negotiation. America is heading close to the brink of self-imposed economic disaster, according to Stephen Collinson from CNN. Yeah, I can put it up on the screen, as a matter of fact. With the Republican-led House refusing to pay the country's debts unless Joe Biden agrees on cuts to current and future spending and new curbs on social programs. So is that unreasonable? Actually, polls show that people do not find it unreasonable to cut spending. Obviously, with COVID and Democrats in control of the House and Senate originally at the beginning of Biden's term, there was outrageous levels of spending. It is not too much to ask for some cuts. But again, as is typical from the media, they are trying to put the blame on the Republicans, who again started the process with, hey, here's a starting point. Here's our plan. Let's have the conversation. Now, Biden and McCarthy are going to meet today. It sounds like they had a phone call last night as well. The president was in Japan, I believe, so having a conversation over the phone. It went well. We'll talk tomorrow, said President Biden after the phone call. Kevin McCarthy, obviously the House Speaker, was very pleased and upbeat. He told reporters that the call was productive and that the on-again, off-again negotiations between his staff and the White House representatives are focused on spending cuts. And we know there's been these meetings, everything's an emergency, but we'll meet in a week and a half kind of thing, which I'll never understand about Washington. Both staffs have been in constant contact. But if you look at the time frame now, if everything went perfectly, I'm not sure you could come to a final conclusion by June 1st, which is when Yellen suggests that it'll be disastrous. We're going to talk a little bit more about this, but I do have to take a short break. Quickly, as a reminder, if you missed the beginning of the program, for your way into school or your way into work, Grand Central Ave will be closed today starting at 8:30 a.m. from West Franklin Street to West Broad Street within the village of Horsehead. So keep that in mind as you travel this morning. All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'm Frank Acom, and we will be right back. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm Frank Acom. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We're talking about the standoff in Washington. McCarthy saying, well, things went well on the conversation with President Biden, but he cautioned, there's no agreement on anything. We're looking at how do we have a victory for this country, McCarthy said. He said he did not think the final legislation would remake the federal budget and the country's debt, but at least put us on a path to changing our behavior of this runaway spending. And it's really what it has been, runaway spending for the last, 2-3 years. President Biden said it's time for Republicans, and it's so interesting. President Biden is seen as, or runs as, I should say, this unifier, right? The great unifier. And then he takes every opportunity he can to attack supposed MAGA Republicans and Republicans in general. It's time for Republicans to accept that there is no deal to be made solely on their partisan terms. So now cutting back spending is considered partisan. He said he had done his part in attempting to raise the borrowing limit so the government can keep paying its bills by agreeing to significant cuts in spending. Now it's time for the other side to move from their extreme positions. And that's a regular talking point that Republicans' positions are always extreme. But again, polling shows people want to cut back on spending. Now the president has threatened using the 14th Amendment. I don't know if teases is the right word. This is after talking with McCarthy. Biden said Sunday that he is willing to cut spending, but added that we have to also look at the tax revenues. Biden, who has previously said that he'd consider invoking the 14th Amendment to raise the debt ceiling without an act of Congress, said Sunday that he thinks he has the authority to do so. The question, could it be done and invoked in time that it would not be appealed as a consequence past the date in question? Now, Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, cast some doubt on this idea. It doesn't seem like something that could be appropriately used in these circumstances, given the legal uncertainty around it and given the tight time frame that we're on. She said that on Meet the Press yesterday. So instead of negotiating, instead of having the conversation, the president is threatening to use the 14th Amendment, and boy, the people that support him in the media jumped on this idea, love this idea. Dean Obeidallah, when he's not too busy writing articles at CNN about the most recent episode of Saturday Night Live, decided to weigh in on the debt ceiling standoff. Biden directly blamed supporters of Donald Trump. Again, the unifying president dividing more in a negotiation process, stating, I think there are some MAGA Republicans in the House who know the damage it would do to the economy. And because I am president, and a president is responsible for everything, Biden would take the blame. And that's the only way to make sure Biden's not reelected. Well, I would say the job you've been doing is a really good indication of not being reelected, according to polls. So I don't think you can blame it on this negotiation. But there's that threat there of, well, it's the MAGA Republicans. They're willing to destroy the economy just because I'm in office. But it's as former President Trump said not that long ago, that this is common. This is what Nancy Pelosi did and Chuck Schumer did back when he was in office, these threats. The remarks were a far cry from the president's upbeat comments earlier in the week. I'm afraid, this again, Dean Obeidallah from CNN. I know they're making some changes around there. It doesn't seem to be too many major changes when it comes to political narratives, but I'm afraid that the brutal truth is that MAGA adherents in the House GOP are working to tank the economy because they believe it will help Republicans win back the White House in 2024, even if it leads to an economic catastrophe. So they're painting Republicans as kind of a scorched earth, do anything to get Biden. But again, the polling numbers aren't that great for President Biden. It's not as if Republicans are saying, we're going to tank the economy. No, they're saying we want reasonable cuts, and the American people want reasonable cuts. So again, CNN making the point that they think the only position is for Biden to invoke the 14th Amendment. The president should invoke the 14th Amendment now, well before the June 1st default deadline. Let the issue head to the courts, while at the same time making it clear to the country and the world that he will use every tool available to ensure that the U.S. will not default on its debts. And while this is playing out in the courts, Biden can still negotiate with the House GOP to reach a broader budget deal. Yes, that's a good way to start negotiations. Hey, I already did an end run around you, but you want to have the conversation by invoking the 14th Amendment. Think of this. This again from CNN and Dino Badala. Regardless of the ultimate court decision, President Biden would show bold leadership by ignoring Congress. Okay. I don't know if this were a different president, if he would have that same opinion, if that was being thrown around. He'd demonstrate that he's willing to protect American jobs and safeguard our economy, which currently boasts the lowest unemployment rate since 1969. Now, Fox News did a good piece on, we got to take a break already, called The Hitchhiker's Guide to Crunch Week on the debt ceiling. And what they're suggesting is a couple different things can happen. Yes, we could default. We could find an agreement. Could lead to McCarthy being out as Speaker. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on beautiful Marcus Street in Corning. We got a couple waves during the last commercial break. If you're new to the program, if you walk by, wave. We'll add it to our little wave counter there at the bottom of the screen. We're talking about the debt ceiling. This is an interesting time frame because as Fox News said on this piece, let me put it up on the screen. Let's say there is a deal by Tuesday, tomorrow. It likely takes until Thursday to get the legislative text into form, okay? McCarthy insists he will adhere to the House's 72-hour rule that allows members to study and consider the bill. That'd be nice. That'd be nice if they let us do that in New York. It also means with the budget. Of course, they didn't. No transparency there. It also means the House may not even debate and vote on the bill until the coming weekend. Therefore, the Senate may not even get the legislation until Monday, May 29th, which happens to be, of course, Memorial Day. Even if the Senate is really moving along, right? That could take until Wednesday, May 31st, to wrap this all up. But more likely, more realistically, June 1st or 2nd. And that's if everything goes perfectly. That's the time frame. Everything a little bit slower in Washington. How does McCarthy agree to any pact which doesn't have close to 200 of the 222 Republicans in the House in favor of it? This is the question that I mentioned before break. It's likely that anywhere from 20 to 40 House Republicans are hard-nosed on any bill that they put forth, which doesn't replicate the debt ceiling bill that they muscled through last month. I don't know if I like that term, muscled through. I think it was a good start to a negotiation, but okay. Fox is told McCarthy's floor is 180 GOP yays. One knowledgeable source told Fox that anything south of 180 could mean a conservative Republican files a motion to, quote, vacate the chair and force a vote for Speaker in the middle of Congress. This has always been the concern for Speaker McCarthy. Can he, and you know the back and forth and how many days it took to actually vote him in as Speaker. Can he accept a deal which may put his own political career in jeopardy? Or is there a way to finesse so everyone believes they've secured a win? That's going to be a major issue for McCarthy, as again, if you're just joining us, Biden hinting that he may just use the 14th Amendment on the debt ceiling, and that this standoff is unacceptable. We're going to talk a little bit more about this, but McCarthy did say, unfortunately, the socialist wing of the Democrat Party appears to be in control, especially with President Biden out of the country. My guess is he's going to want to deal directly with me, is what Biden said about McCarthy. Wow, this is going to be an interesting week. If you are a politically minded person, this is going to get fun. So if you want to weigh in on it, and there is our contact information before we go to break. Weigh in on what you think about the negotiations, how they're going to go. Is there any way, you look at that time frame, is there any way that we can make it by June 1st? Does not seem it to me if you just do the simple math, the simple schedule. But, hey, It's not going to stop the talk and the negotiation. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. We're talking about the debt ceiling. Senator Ted Cruz was on Fox News Sunday saying that it's really unfortunate to see how Joe Biden is approaching this job. It's all politics all the time, and he constantly goes to the hard left. I think it's interesting that Ted Cruz here kind of flipped the narrative of what the media is trying to push, which is it's Biden who's willing to tank the economy because he's not willing to negotiate. He's off in Japan. He should be in Washington, D.C. He should be sitting down and working out a deal, working out a compromise. The House of Representatives did its job weeks ago. It passed legislation, as we talked about. We talked about that earlier. Unfortunately, Joe Biden has handed his entire agenda over to the radical left, to the Bernie Sanders and the AOCs of the world. His view is he's willing to tank the economy because he is unwilling to give a penny in the trillions of spending that cause inflation, hurting Americans all across the country. It's blatantly unreasonable position. He nonetheless smiles and just blames the other side. And the media is very happy to go along with that narrative of blaming the quote-unquote MAGA Republicans. But the House put forth a plan. Biden needs to take that and negotiate. But they've said from the beginning it's a no-go. There's no negotiation. So as Senator Cruz is suggesting, that he's caved to the far left that will not allow any kind of spending cuts whatsoever. But it's this outrageous spending that has led to the problem that we're having with inflation. When you go to the grocery store, you see it in your day-to-day life. Now, Yellen, as I mentioned earlier, told Chuck Todd on Meet the Press yesterday that the 14th Amendment can't be appropriately used to raise the debt ceiling, but we do have the president threatening that over and over again. Van Hollen, Senator Chris Van Hollen from Maryland, said, again, this is the way they go with the narrative, and this is what happens in Washington. A memo goes out, and everybody has to attack, quote-unquote, the MAGA Republicans. They're threatening to blow up the economy if we don't do things exactly their way. Now, listen to that rhetoric. First of all, no, it's called negotiation. I think the plan that was put forth was reasonable. I think a lot of people believed it wasn't conservative enough, but no negotiation whatsoever. But I don't like that rhetoric, and this is the kind of thing that divides us so much, that they're threatening to blow up. I mean, is that the right term to use? Blow up the economy if we don't do things exactly the way. I know this is typical politics, but this constant need to divide us further and further on what should just be negotiations on the debt ceiling. They had it. That had it was Speaker Republicans. What Speaker Republicans and the MAGA Republicans and Donald Trump are threatening if they don't get their way. That's a weird way of saying that. Threatening to blow up the economy. That's Senator Chris Van Hollen from Maryland. Another short break, then we're going to wrap up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. One last thing on the debt ceiling. Most Americans only want a debt ceiling raised with deficit conditions. This coming from an AP poll, probably not something you'll see in too many of the mainstream media outlets, because they're trying to push a narrative that it's only Biden's way and that the Republicans are trying to blow up the economy. 34% of Democrats and 6% of Republicans support an increase without conditions, but just 19% believe the limit should be raised without conditions. Conversely, now here's an important number, a majority of 63% of Americans, including most Democrats and Republicans, want Congress and President Biden to raise the borrowing limit, quote, only if lawmakers include terms on reducing the federal budget deficit. Interesting. Not a part or not a line that you'll hear in the mainstream media. Couple quick things to run through before we're out of time looking at it, and we are, wow, this show went fast. How much fun did we have? I want to thank Michael Vellino, the Thurston Town Supervisor, for being our guest right out of the gate. to use horse racing terms, as the Preakness was an exciting one on Saturday. Today is a day that it is expected that Tim Scott will announce he's running for president. He already filed his candidacy with the Federal Election Commission, and it's going to kick off today with an endorsement from South Dakota Senator John Thune. He's the number 2 Senate Republican. It is speculated, I guess, that he is going to endorse Tim Scott's bid for president. And actually, it's going to be a busy week because I believe Ron DeSantis is expected to announce this week or early next week. The New York Post has a interesting piece. If you have time, I would recommend it. It's from the Post editorial board that said Biden's a fool to ignore the RFK Jr. challenge. If you're not aware, RFK Jr. is running as a Democrat. It started right off with like 20% in the polls, which is a little bit, not typical, I would say. And they've tried to paint him as a loon. They've tried to paint him as a conspiracy theorist. They're trying to do everything they can to hurt his campaign, because I think the talking heads were pretty shocked that he started with 20% in the primary polls. Expect that number to soar, said the New York Post editorial board, as long as he's the only guy willing to stand up and point out that the emperor has no clothes. Well, there we go. We're out of time for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you to everybody who joined us. Make sure you tune in tomorrow morning starting at 7 a.m. and every weekday morning right here to Big Fox for Frankly Speaking. I'm Frank Acom. Have a great day, everyone, and we will be back bright and early tomorrow morning. I look forward to it. Hi, I'm Frank Acom. Thanks for checking out our YouTube page. We'll be uploading each edition of Frankly Speaking 1 week after the original air date. So, let me remind you to watch the live version of Frankly Speaking weekday mornings starting at 7, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox.